Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Grab yourself a cup of tea and let's talk some boxing. Now, interestingly enough, Anthony Joshua seems to believe now that undisputed with Tyson Fury will never happen. Now, his promoter Eddie Hearn is being a little bit more positive and a little bit more hopeful, but then again he's got to be because he is the one who has the job of trying to make it, and that is something of which he's already achieved. It was just the arbitration between Wilder and Fury that undone 5 months of his hard work, which is a great shame. But still, moving on from that, AJ will be fighting Usyk, Fury will be fighting Wilder. That is the current situation. Now, of course, they are going to try and make the fight after that, if Wilder doesn't beat Fury, and if AJ is able to come through Usyk. Now, I would expect Fury to beat Wilder for a third time, as long as he is fully on it, as long as he does not underestimate him and allow that punch to land. Now, I know that that punch has landed before, but anything can happen in a different set of circumstances. So if Wilder lands that punch at the right time or at the wrong time for Fury, then it can change everything. It just comes down to the fact that Fury needs to be 100% focused on Wilder, and he needs to understand what is in front of him. And the same applies for Anthony Joshua, who has had 4 weeks of hard sparring, southpaw sparring in Sheffield according to Eddie Hearn. So AJ has already begun his preparations for Usyk, which is a good thing because I do believe that he has been putting in some good training in preparation for Tyson Fury. Even though he did not begin a training camp, he was still tailoring a game plan and looking to bring sparring partners in who could kind of emulate what Fury was able to do in the boxing ring, but obviously things have changed. Now, I do like the approach from Anthony Joshua a little bit better, going in September instead of July. I mean, I know Fury wants to get Wilder out the way, and he just wants to get on with the fight, and in some ways I do believe they had a few things in place before the arbitration. They must have, because they had the deal done so quickly. I mean, Wilder signed on Wednesday, the arbitration was on Monday, so they must have had something in place. I mean, Fury signed that Saturday, and he signed on camera in a hall of a boxing venue. It is highly unlikely that they would be able to put a deal together like that in a mere day or two. That isn't going to happen, so I would imagine that things were already set in motion way before the arbitration. I mean, we heard about a reserve July 24th date that Bob Arum spoke about if the AJ fight falls through, and he spoke about that a couple of weeks before the arbitration. So clearly moves were being made in the event that Wilder does get this opportunity to face Tyson Fury again, and lo and behold, that has been the thing that has happened. Now, of course, that did mean that Undisputed could not take place this year, and if Anthony Joshua is fighting in September, which it seems like he will, at Tottenham Stadium, I don't believe that AJ will fight again in December. He might do. If he does, it will be late in December, but I just don't see it. I see Anthony Joshua coming back maybe early next year. Maybe we could see him in January, maybe February, maybe even March, but not in December. Could it be Undisputed? Well, according to Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua believed that Tyson Fury never wanted this Undisputed fight. He even called Tyson Fury a fraud in one of his social media posts, and he believes that Undisputed will never happen. Now, again, Eddie Hearn is remaining more optimistic about the possibility of Undisputed, but AJ seems to be quite skeptical given what has happened, especially given that Tyson Fury will now be fighting Deontay Wilder again, and that's a risky fight. AJ versus Usyk, a risky fight. Now, in the event that they both come through, what are the chances they actually get this deal over the line this time around? Will there be another thing that throws the spanner into the works? I mean, it seems like that has happened continuously, especially when AJ tries to make an Undisputed fight. It happened with Wilder, and it has now happened with Tyson Fury, so you can get why Anthony Joshua would be skeptical about probably making any Undisputed fight, especially when Wilder is in the mix and when Tyson Fury is now in the mix. I believe what Anthony Joshua will do is probably at the moment, I mean, not probably, definitely, he's going to focus on Alexander Usyk. That is the smart thing to do. But going forward after that, he will likely have more mandatories to come. I mean, he might have a voluntary in there, but I would imagine a WBA mandatory will come sometime. I believe that an IBF mandatory will come perhaps next year, because obviously they are looking to do an eliminator between Hrgovic and a yet not found opponent. So that is going to be an eliminator to see who gets to face Anthony Joshua as mandatory to that belt. And then who knows, after that, maybe WBO again. He seems to be going around like that. It's very difficult for Anthony Joshua to get a voluntary with all of these mandatories being called. But after Usyk is dealt with, there are no current mandatories for AJ. So there is the possibility that he could make undisputed. But then again, next year, the WBC mandatory might come. In fact, it should do with Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte needs his opportunity, and the WBC do need to give him that. So next year, it could be Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte. One interesting thing is, if Tyson Fury is fighting on July 24th, provided he wins, who is he going to fight in November, December? Because that won't be his only fight this year, depending of course on what happens in the ring with Deontay Wilder, but this will not be his only fight. So who is he going to fight? I don't believe he'll fight AJ this year, because AJ will be fighting in September, which means he won't probably fight until next year again. I mean, they could try and make it for December, but I'm not entirely convinced. If there is anything to be made between Tyson Fury and AJ, which AJ is very skeptical about now, which is understandable given what has happened, I believe it will happen next year. So there is a potential chance that Tyson Fury could face Dillian Whyte this year. If he has any plans of doing undisputed with AJ, then he will fight Dillian Whyte this year. And that's a dangerous fight, very risky, because Dillian Whyte is a tough challenge for anyone in the heavyweight division. But you can just see that happening, because the WBC should call Dillian Whyte as their mandatory next year. That's just what they should do. It's the right thing to do, because Dillian Whyte has waited, he's done the right thing, he's done what he has been asked to do, time after time. So that mandatory must come, he must have his opportunity. And if Tyson Fury wants to do undisputed with AJ next year, then he'll fight Dillian Whyte this year after Deontay Wilder. Then dealing with his mandatory before he is called, which is obviously what he needs to do, because if his mandatory is called next year when he's trying to make undisputed with AJ, that makes it very difficult for him to find a way to get into that fight with Anthony Joshua. And Dillian Whyte is not going to be accepting step-aside money. He's not going to be waiting. He's waited long enough, so his chance must come. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. Also leave a like and grab that subscribe button. Thanks, guys.